Where do things stand so far? You've got the latest polling on that.
Well, we've been doing weekly tracking with CP24 and CTV News, and the latest tracking for this week shows that the progressive conservatives under Ford have an advantage. They're at around 35%. The Liberals are at 30%. New Democrats at around 24. Greens 4. The New Blue at around 3.6. So right now, a marginal advantage. But we have to remember the margin of error for the survey is about 4.4 percentage points, 19 times out of 20. So the Tories got a 5-point advantage. That's not a big advantage. And in the last election, think of it this way: they were at 41% in the last election. But the numbers that have really changed since the last election has to do with the orange and the red teams, like the New Democrats. In the last election had 34%. Now they're down to 24%, while the Liberals were at 20, and now they're up to 30% support. So there's stuff going on in terms of people being more open to voting for the Liberal Party of Ontario, and the NDP not showing as well currently than they did in the last provincial election.
I know in previous episodes, Nick, we've talked about how Ontario NDP leader Andrew Horwath has just done better and better, as we get into the next election. But the Liberals now have a brand new leader and Stephen Del Duca. So how much of this rise in Liberal support might be attributed to his personal brand?
And hard to tell at this point. The fact that the Liberals are challenging is important, and usually the Liberals are the main challengers to the progressive conservatives. We ask Ontarians who they prefer as the premier. Ford's ahead at around 29 points, followed by Del Duca at 24. But the key movement in the first week of the campaign has been Del Duca. In the very beginning of the campaign, only 17% of Ontarians gave him a tip of the hat as the one they would prefer as premier, and that's up to 24. So he's up a full 7 percentage points, and he's starting to pull ahead of Horwath. He's numerically ahead, 24-20 on the preferred premier front, still within the margin of error. But it looks like after the first week, not having made any mistakes, not having blown up, not having made any significant missteps, that a number of Ontarians are starting to kind of kick the political tires on the Del Duca campaign. And at least week one, he had a pickup in terms of his personal brand, but the ballot numbers didn't move. So the ballot numbers were the same. So brand up, ballot flat for the Liberals.
How much of the personal support numbers going up for Del Duca do you think is just because Canadians may not to take anything away from him, but that Canadians aren't that familiar with him?
Yeah, well, you're starting at zero, not quite zero, but he's an unknown commodity. And that's why the debates that will take place throughout the course of the campaign, especially the one next week, which will be the big debate, will be critical, because, Horwath and Ford are, for all intents and purposes, known commodities. I would hazard to say that most Ontarians have opinions of both of those and feel that they're familiar with both Horwath and Ford. Del Duca is the new person on the political menu. And I think when folks look at the campaign and look at the debates when they do occur, that it'll be looking at Del Duca to see how he stacks up against Horwath and Ford. And we'll see whether he has either a breakout moment or a recoil. Yeah, right. Recoil can happen too, right? People can go, I thought he was okay, and then not. Or he's better than I thought he was. And then the numbers might even move even more for the Del Duca brand personally.
And just a note for our listeners, we will have a special Ontario election episode released after next week's debate. So watch out for that. Nick, we already talked about some of the top issues of concern federally, but what are the top issues for Ontario?
Well, it's interesting. The top Ontario issue right now is healthcare at around 26%, followed by the cost of living at 18%. But the kicker on the cost of living stuff, and it probably has to do with, you go to the gas pump and gas is up, everything's up, that just in the past 7 days, concern about the cost of living is up 6 points from 12 to 18%. Housing still one of the top issues at around 10%, the environment 9%, economy at around 8%. So Michael, think of it as a 1-2 punch on the issue front. First of all, healthcare. Second, economic issues like the cost of living and housing and the economy and jobs. But what is not on the radar right now significantly is the pandemic.
Mm.
So if Doug Ford and the progressive conservatives think that this election could be a victory lap on their job managing through the pandemic, like it has been for other provincial governments during the course of the pandemic, it's not on the agenda. So what does this mean? People are interested in Ontario. What are you going to do for me now? Not what have you done in the past?